Hello viewers. Okay, this video is basically going to be on crimping 357 magnums. This was a request by a viewer to know about crimping. I guess specifically for the 357 mag, I believe. So there's a couple of forms of crimping. You can crimp with your seating die. A lot of manufacturers of dies allow you to crimp with their seating die. You can crimp with a secondary die, which could be a tapered or a roll crimp. There's two different kinds. What I do on these 357 mag is I crimp with the seating die. So we're going to go over how I crimp 357 Magnum with the seating die. So I'm not going to cover taper crimp or a separate die for crimping in this video. We'd have to do that on another one. So I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible so that way it's not real lengthy. But I've got 100 cases here, and of course we're not going to crimp them all, but I have three types of powder. Type group in the majority because I'm trying to burn through it. And then I have Vitavori. This is N350. And then IMR 4227. So the majority of these, 90, are actually the type group. Then we have 10 of the N350, or I'm sorry, 5 of the N350, and then 5 of the 4227. I got them marked with labels here. So as far as safety goes, make sure you don't have any double charges, especially if you're using a powder such as Tight Group, a real fast burning powder that it doesn't take a whole lot. It's hard to fill the case up. It's hard to tell if you got a double charge when using that powder. This one, not so much. I mean, if you double charge 4227, it's going to overflow, and if you double charge the N350, it will also overflow, but not the Tight Group. I could put 3 charges of the Tight Group in the 357 Magnum, and it still wouldn't overflow. You could definitely see it with 3, but 2 would be a little bit tougher. So always check them with a light, and I'll just kind of show you the difference here. Hope I don't make you dizzy. Maybe you can see this. So the one on the right is the 4227, and then the one to the left of that is the N350, and then you have the Tight Group, which is kind of hard to tell, but there's a whole lot of case left on that Tight Group. So definitely be careful with that. And I'm kind of limited on space right now because I have been moving, rearranging, and my loading bench and what's around it is a disaster. I got stuff everywhere. So I'm trying to get a little bit more organized and get rid of some stuff. But let's get started. Now you'll have to go based on your manufacturer's preference or instructions when it comes to setting the seating die. So we'll just kind of turn the camera a little bit. And on Lee's, what it recommends is you lower the ram, and I always kind of dust the face of the shell holder off because I want to make sure I'm getting good contact on there. So you'll raise the ram, screw it down until it just touches it, and then it recommends backing out 3 times. Now that's going to give you no crimp, and that's actually what we want because we want to seat the bullet first. So we're going to stop there. We're just touching it. I'm going to find a point on this die that I can tell when I get 3 turns out of it, or revolutions. So there's some numbering here, so I'm going to watch that. So that would be 1, 2, and 3. So that's 3 full turns out. Now we want to tighten the die down. And I've been a little bit under the weather, so it's a little bit tough for me to talk. You may have to cut the volume up fairly high on this video. Okay, so we're tightened down, And good rule of thumb, I always back out my bullet seating die a little bit because I don't want to have to pull that bullet. All right, so we're going to start with our tight group. So we'll get a case. All these have been charged. And a little trick I do, and I don't have it in here right now, is to keep that case positioned I like to use my priming arm and what that's going to do is that's going to hold my case down, so when I seat my bullet it's not going to bounce around. Alright, let's start over. And what it does is when I lower the ram, that priming arm is going to come up. It's going to add pressure to the case right here, and it's going to keep it from moving around while I can place the bullet on there. Okay. So we'll take our bullet, line it up, and these have already been expanded, but I expand very little. I don't want too much expansion. I felt some contact there. I want to back out. Okay. So we got a ways to go. Take a measurement, see where we're at. I know we got a ways to go, but I just want to make sure. Okay. So basically what we're doing here is we are adjusting the length of our ammo right now. So that's the first thing you want to do. You don't worry about crimping. You don't want to worry about anything like that. You want to get your overall length where you want it at. And then once you have that, then we're going to seat the bullet. Well, I think we're there. Their cantilures are a little high on this, and I don't want to go too far. I don't want to add any more pressure on what we need to. We'll go down a little bit more. Okay, I think we're there. All right, so we've got our overall length. Now what we want to do is we want to add our crimp. So what we're going to do from here, we're going to take our shell out, or cartridge, and we want to loosen our die. Well, first we want to back out on the seating stem. So go ahead and back out on the seating stem all the way, because we've got the seating where we want it. It's exactly where we want it. We want to back out on the die. Note where your letters or your marking, or if you got a hash mark on there, note where that's at. Note where that's at. So what we're going to do is I normally start off with a half a turn, and that's just for this particular die. Yours will be different. You may want to start off with a quarter turn. So we turn this die down 1/4 turn. And this is actually going to be a roll crimp. Okay, I felt a little contact there. So we do have a little crimp on there. A very light crimp. I'm going to turn it in just a hair. That would probably be your quarter. I don't think I went all the way. Okay. So we've got a little crimp on there. Not quite sure if you can see that or not, but it's a slight crimp, and this is a roll crimp. So I'm happy with that crimp. Now, how I view crimp is, I love a crimp. I do. I crimp just about everything, especially on pistol ammo. Depending on what it is, it's a taper crimp. These are going to be a roll crimp. But my theory behind it is the slower burning powder is going to get a heavier crimp. Now, tight group is a fast burning powder. It is. So I don't really need a whole lot of crimp on that. I want some, but I don't need a heavy crimp. Now, when I get to the 4227, it's going to have a heavier crimp. The N350, I have a little bit more than the tight group. But the 4227 is a little bit slower burning, so it's going to get a little bit more, the bulk of it. So we're right at a quarter of a turn for our tight group. So I'm happy with that. Now, I did take this out of adjustment. We could see some more, and we'll go ahead and do that. But my crimp set, my seating stem's off. I'm going to take that same case. I'm going to lower the ram, and I'm going to turn my seating stem in until it contacts that bullet. All right. Then I'll take it out. Then I'm actually ready for my next case. So I can put that case in there, take a bullet, put it right on top, raise it into the ram. I'm going to seat and I'm going to crimp at the same time. And it's on. That's exactly where we want to be. Now, one thing when it comes to crimping, if you want a consistent crimp, you'll have to trim your cases. That's a must. If you don't trim your cases, you won't get a consistent crimp because some cases will be longer than others. They'll contact that die first and you'll get a heavier crimp. So it's important, if you want to be consistent, you need to trim them. So we could even do another one. We've got our crimp, we got our bullet seating depth, and we're good to go. So we could go all night with this. Okay? And you will feel the difference on that crimp. You'll feel that contact, and it'll give you a little Alright, so we got that set. Now we turned it a quarter turn in. Now what we want to do is we want to get our crimp on our N350. So I'm going to back out that seating stem. I'm going to loosen the die. I'm going to go back to that full 3 turns out. Tighten the die back down. And get our case labeled N350. So this will get, we want a little bit more crimp than we want on our tight group. So, but first we got to seat the bullet. So we want to get our overall length. Take our bullet down, raise the ram. We got some contact. We need to go way down. And kind of eyeball this a little bit, but I'm still going to use our caliper. Now we got a caliper out. Well, we can go a little bit more. Okay. Got a little ways, a little bit more. Well, it's taking longer than I thought. Thought this would be a fairly short video. Almost there. And then when you start getting close to where you want it, you're talking little small turns on the seating stem. A little hair more. That's the thing about those cantilevers. Sometimes you're not gonna see them where they're putting them at, but we're in it. We're just not covering it. So now that's got our overall length that we need for that particular powder bullet combination. So what we want to do is we want to back out on our seating stem again. Loosen our die. Remember, always start with a quarter. That would be a quarter. Let's go in. I felt the contact. I want a little bit more because this is a little bit slower burning powder. It's not too much faster, but it is slower. So we'll try 3/4 is pretty heavy for this particular die. That may be a little much. It looks pretty good. I wish you could see this a little bit better, but you can actually see this roll. See that roll in that case? That's a heavy crimp for me. Okay. So we've got our crimp on that one. It's almost 3/4, not exactly. So I'm gonna raise it back. I'm gonna turn my seating stem in till it's snug. Okay, we're there. So we could take another of the N350. We got our crimp where we want it. We have our seating depth where we want it. So now we're seating and crimping at the same time. And we're still good on our overall length. So there we go. And then of course we can do the same with the 4227. Gonna back out. Get a case of it's got the 4227 in it. And once you get comfortable with your dies, that process will speed up, but do take your time. And good light goes a long ways. You can tell I need some more light. Almost there. Bam. Dead on. Okay, we got our overall length. Now what we want to do is turn this die in. First, back out on the seating stem. Because we don't want to push that bullet down anymore. We got it exactly where we want it. Alright, we want to turn. That's a full 3/4. It's going to be a fairly heavy crimp. Okay. Yeah, I can feel that. There we go. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're looking for. So we'll put that back in, lower that back down, turn our seating stem in. It just touches. Now, the next one will seat and crimp at the same time. So watch your crimp. Probably the biggest mistake is from the very get-go the die setup is totally off. That's what causes mistakes when it comes to seating and crimping at the same time. So read the instructions for your dies. If you're using RCPS, if you're using Redding, Hornady, Lee, or even some of the older ones, Pacific, I can't even remember the name. Pacific, I think, was one. But read those and go by those instructions, because your dies are going to be from another manufacturer will be different from this. And the taper crimp die is a great die. I just did not want to spend another $15 to $20, for what little I shoot the 357. So that's my take on crimping. A slower burning powder, to me, a heavier crimp is gonna work better. If I was using H110, I'd crimp it about the same as the 4227. If I was using long shot, I'd probably be in line with the N350, and then just a slight crimp on the tie group. And also go by a bullet manufacturer too. They say a light taper crimp for these bullets. That's what X-treme says. I don't have a taper crimp die, so I'm putting a roll crimp on there. And the only reason they're saying that is because it does damage that bullet some, because you're rolling into it. You're turning that flat edge into that bullet. So it's going to cause damage to that. But it's in the cantilure. We actually got it right on there. So it's kind of down there anyway. So I almost lost battery on you. So I think we'll be okay with that. But crimp's important. It makes sure you get good ignition. You got it. That primer sparks. You want to burn that powder up. Tight group. It lights up fairly well. These two here, you're going to need that crimp. You're going to need that pressure, because if you don't have a crimp and you're shooting, and I went to shoot these with no crimp, that bullet would jump out as soon as it started building pressure up, and some of that gas could escape around the bullet, and we just wouldn't get the pressure we need to project that bullet down the barrel. So that's the whole purpose of crimp. Well, it's not the whole purpose, but it prevents that bullet setback when you're shooting, but also it holds a good seal in there, so that way you won't have those escape gases. So this turned out to be a little bit longer than I thought, but I'm about a month behind on making this, so I hope it was beneficial. If you have requests, let me know. I'll do my best to get to them. If I have the funds to do it, I had to order bullets and actually go shooting, so I haven't been shooting in a while. So I'll get the rest of these loaded up and hopefully get to the range in a week or two and unload these. So enjoy loading, be safe, get plenty of practice, read as much as you can. Have a great day.